Hello, Jessica. Thank you very much for joining me today. Your story is quite a unique one, so I'm excited to get into it.
The twists and turns, and still probably more to come. But thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Amazing. So why don't we start off with you telling us a little bit about your story and how you went from being an executive in the corporate world to not just starting your own business, but starting your own business in numerology. So tell me about that.
Well, numbers have been the thread throughout my life. I will say, like, even as a young child, numbers always spoke to me in a way that I didn't really understand. But, kids have journals and they usually write stories. And I wrote equations and numbers and like geometric shapes. And, I was always praised for my intellect when I was younger. And so that started to define a little bit of how I felt success of like, okay, I need to use my brain. I need to use my mind. And this is what's going to help me be successful. And so, I was good at math. And so I did, I guess, maybe what was perceived to be the right path when I was younger. And I went into finance. So I went to university. I got my degree in finance and business. I interned on Wall Street and I was set 1 month before graduation. I was set with a brokerage. And I started to feel not just doubts, but the pull to something different. And I know many of us feel that. And it's like this scary feeling, especially when we don't know what it is we're being pulled to. So I just said, listen, I need a break. And I went to work on a cruise ship. Now, this is a left-hand turn. Everyone in my family, although they were very polite, were like, what the heck? You've worked for this moment and you're literally sailing away. And I thought I just was like, well, I need to do it. I need to do it. And I went, which I thought I was just going to do one contract, couple of months, figure out what my hesitation was and come back. 7 years later, I was still sailing around the world. But what I learned in that metaphoric voyage is that I was interested in people and I was interested in how we work together. But yet I still did not have the confidence in myself. I still could not define like what it is I wanted to do in the world. So when I came back to land, as they say, I went right back to corporate. I went back to business and I said, this is going to be how I'm going to be successful, right? I'm going to work hard. I went into finance again, this time human resources. So a little bit of the combination of both. And I worked in corporate for 15 years, a long time, and the same position, same job, same people. And about 2 years ago, I started to redefine success for myself. And in a meditation, I saw the vision of the numbers in a book that I meant to write in this lifetime. And my guide said, what are you waiting for? And at that moment, I couldn't answer the question. I don't know what I was waiting for. And so I quit my job. I started to learn everything I could about numerology, and now it's my full-time business.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, if that's not a roller coaster, I don't know what
Yes.
is. Really quickly, can you define what numerology is for us?
Sure. So numerology is the study of the energy of numbers. And, this dates back to Pythagoras, that guy kind of that we all know of a squared plus b squared equals c squared. He was actually studying music. And he found that obviously different notes, like the sound waves, he was studying sound waves. And in that, he also found that numbers oscillate at a different rate per second. And just like a sound wave, just like a light wave. And so when you see numbers like 1111, or you notice a receipt, or just numbers kind of catch your attention, that's not your mind playing tricks on you. It is, you are feeling the energetic waves coming from them. And so how I use this is I study the numbers that are present in a person's date of birth, in their time of birth. We look at today's date and the patterns of the energy that are happening all around us. And we can use it like a meteorologist would forecast weather. So we can look at the patterns and connect the dots and kind of forecast energy so we can harness it and use our energy to the best of our ability. It just makes work and life easier. And you probably feel it, right? Those days where you're hitting like all the green lights, it just feels so easy. And other days, it's like you are literally climbing a mountain. And it is, I mean, of course, there are many factors, but a lot of it is energy. And of course, you can continue to like go against the wind. You'll probably still get there. But wouldn't it be nice if the wind was at your back? Wouldn't it be nice if it just felt easier and like more joyful? And we can do that by looking at our strengths and our gifts and maximizing those. And of course, still be aware of our challenges, but not spend a lot of time there.
I totally echo that as well. Even in the corporate world, a lot of people are just like, oh, well, you need to focus on your weaknesses so you can develop them. But actually, why would you do that when you can just play to your strengths and have an easier life? Yeah,
and
totally.
hire someone else or work with someone else to help complement you, right? This is, I do work with a lot of corporations still, and this is a lot of what we do. We hire people like us because we feel that comfort level, of course, and we can see us in them. But in many cases, the best hire is someone who possesses skills and attributes that you don't have. And it might feel uncomfortable because you might not understand them. You're going to have to hire someone whose brain you might not understand because it's not like yours. But that's what creates the team.
A team to work harmoniously. It's not the like-minded that's going to get there. It's the opposing viewpoints that's going to create a higher level mastermind that's going to deliver the better results, innovate at a higher level.
Yeah,
but what was
absolutely.
interesting from what you said is, your friends and family were like, whoa, what are you doing when you went sailing? But I bet, at that time, 7 years later, they were like, okay, cool, she knows what she's doing. But then you changed it to corporate. At that point, maybe some of them were like, okay, she's come to her senses. But what happened when you switched to starting your own business into something completely different?
Do you know what was interesting? I didn't get as much pushback or surprise as I thought I would. And here's why. I think two things. My definition of success had changed, and what I value or what I prioritize has shifted. And, sometimes we resist that because we have this sense of, I said I wanted that. And now if I don't want it, am I giving up? And, I think it was Steve Jobs who said, like, to change your mind takes humility. But imagine if he didn't change his mind. Imagine if he didn't like switch up some of his technology, right? Like Apple wouldn't be where it is today. And the same happened for me. And I articulated it and I expressed it. And so I'm a very open, direct person. And so people were like, what are you doing? I was like, listen, my priorities changed. I no longer feel aligned here. And I simply, and it's in my numbers, I cannot do something that I don't feel the purpose in. And the second thing that I think really helped is for those who have known me a very long time. So going back to childhood and even in university, there were moments where like I didn't understand what was going on. They didn't understand what was going on, but now they see that thread. Like I had visions. I had a connection that I couldn't quite define. Now I kind of know it's with my higher self or with my guides. But and so they see me actually coming back to myself a bit because I am a bit more confident in being okay with expressing who I am and not really caring about other people's opinions. Like, sure, people might think I'm, off my rocker for doing this, but it doesn't affect me anymore. And, my biggest thing is I don't regret it, but now at 43, I look back and I think, wow, there are a lot of years that I spent doing what others expected of me or what I thought I should. And I have 2 young girls now, and I don't want that for them. I think my family and friends can feel that passion in me. Although they probably talk behind my back every once in a while. That's okay too. But I feel their support. So that's all that matters.
Absolutely. And I think, we can't control what happens behind our back. So
No.
why worry about that? But what I really liked about what you said is that it no longer affected you what they thought.
Yeah.
So the transition was less about them, but more about you. Is that when you got aligned with what you wanted and what you wanted to put out there, it then became so much easier for you to just follow your path. And I think a lot of people, especially the last couple of years, have been going through that struggle where they realize, like, wait a second, I've spent years of my life working for other people who may not have had my best interest, but I didn't even know that I was doing it because other people expected that of me.
Yes.
And, it's only when they figured out that they could start passion projects that they could then make a business out of it that they went into it. So talk to me about this like fear of failure element, because you must have definitely had that when you were, had 22 years of experience working in different fields and now starting on your own.
I think this is different for everybody, but in my numerology, I have a lot of ones. And ones are these like a lot of ideas, a lot of energy, and it's a very physical number. So I learn best through taking action. And my philosophy is if I fear, I just do it again. I just try again. I just do it in a different way. And so it's interesting. And I think this also goes back, okay, this is an interesting question because it also goes back to how I define success. Because in my new business, I was very clear of what I wanted. I wanted to impact other people's lives. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to share about numbers, and I wanted more time with my family. And yes, the financial returns have come after that, but it was kind of the financial returns were a byproduct of my why in that. So I don't know if I ever feared failing because I knew I would impact people. I knew that this would make a difference. And I was more pleasantly surprised in the business aspect of it, if that makes sense. But I know that is unique to my numbers. A lot of people have this fear of failure because of perfectionism or because they have a lot of mental numbers. And so they are literally in their head. And again, like my best advice is you never know if you're going to fail until you try. There is nothing wrong with a backup plan. We hear this like, you got to go big and you have to be all in. And yes, your energy has to be all in. But if that scares you, create like a little runway or create a little backup plan, not to rely on, but just to kind of like ease your nervous system a bit to give you a bit more confidence to go for it. Yeah, I think that's also been one of my biggest lessons is it doesn't need to be all or nothing.
We talk a lot about how people need to just embrace the different ways of working, different ways of life that people have. Because, what I might function like, I like having my fingers in lots of pies, I like doing lots of different things, but other people can't handle the same thing. And their success or their vision of life looks very different. You want to hit one thing at a time. So the great thing that you just mentioned there is it's okay. Like Steve Jobs' example, you can fail, but it's not a failure because you're just pivoting and trying something else.
Yeah.
So that makes
and you think back about like scientists. Very rarely is the hypothesis correct on the first try. And the scientists, like, just think of what was discovered even by accident. Like, I love those stories, right? You hear them all the time of like, I was studying this and then all of a sudden, boom, like this miraculous, like, and you're like, wow, that never would have happened if that scientist hadn't taken a leap there, right? So that's really important.
Gives you comfort, right? Because you know that it keeps coming around. You'll have different opportunities that keep coming back. And if you don't, I guess if you don't have that scarcity mindset, then you're not acting out of fear. And instead you're acting in confidence.
Yes. And that just feels so much better. And it just like amplifies your energy. Because in business, even if corporations or even if companies aren't, explicit in saying they're using, energy, you can feel it, right? You can feel when someone comes at you with a sale that's out of scarcity. Whenever someone calls me on the last day of the month and they start like hitting it hard on me, I'm like, whoa, like, right? You can feel it. And even if you
smell the desperation.
Yes, right? And so imagine if you just flipped the switch and still had the same passion, but the passion for the positive instead of like the pushing out of fear. And it just makes it easier for you, but also better for the people you're serving. 100%, I feel that.
You just mentioned earlier, the transition between your corporate world to this one. felt a lot easier because your family and friends just felt that passion coming from you, because they knew exactly, oh wow, this means something to you, and you're going hard because you've understood the world, kind of want to get involved in it. And I think that passion becomes contagious. And so tell me about your journey when you started. You said a couple of years ago.
Yep.
So was it a success right off the bat, or did you have to work hard?
So for a period of time, I did both. I would get up at 5 a.m. and I would work on my business. And then I would have, the corporate responsibilities in the day. And then after the kids went to bed, I would work on my business. And it was a lot of outreach and a lot of free resources in the beginning, because I can understand that numerology is a really new concept for people. But again, back to your point, I loved it. And so it didn't matter. And when it came a point where it started creeping into the day and I just knew I could not give my best to both worlds, that was the decision to go. But the cool thing is, this is where I think it's really important. And I know this can be hard, but if you are doing this, if you are leaving corporate to start your own business, if you can, be 100% honest and transparent with your boss and your corporate company. I was 100% transparent and honest from the beginning. I have this passion. I'm working on it. And then when it started to creep into my day, I said, hey, listen, I'm taking these clients during the day. I'm unavailable. You let me know if this starts to be a problem, but I'll still get my work done. I'll still do what I need to do. And so there's open dialogue. And, I actually started to use, of course, the numbers in the corporate world, right? I would make suggestions and I was immersed in spreadsheets and I would make suggestions and forecasts. And I was quite adept at doing that. And so they saw the value, right, of it as well. And so then when it was time for me to go, I remember being like, okay, I have talked to you. We get on the call and my boss and I were like, it's time to go. And I'm like, yes, it is time to go. So two things here. Again, it doesn't need to be all or nothing. You're never going to be 100% comfortable or confident when I left, right? I hadn't built my business to where it is today at that point, but I was at the threshold of, if I wanted it to grow bigger, I needed to shift my attention to it. And then if you can be honest, just feels so much better, right? When you're able to share everything. Now, I know in some corporate structures that might not work, especially if you have, some contractual obligations. But if you can, I think that's just a really nice way to transition.
And it doesn't burn any bridges. So, you never know the kind of opportunities that might open up for you in the future as well.
Absolutely.
When I was leaving the full-time job, I did exactly the same thing. My managers, the people in my team, they all kind of knew what I was going to do. So I think the benefit of what you just mentioned there is that by keeping the options open for you, it keeps you in alignment with your own self. And then you're not starting something new on a lie, but also you're then getting an opportunity to kind of do both things, get security. So you have the safety of testing out different things without the risk of, oh my God, I can't pay my bills now. And then you have all this stress. But the cool thing that you mentioned there was the work ethic, right? So talk to me a little bit about that, because it sounds like you work really hard.
Yeah, I think, again, my numbers point to doing. I like to be in action. I like to do. I don't necessarily like to think all that much. I gain clarity through action. I'll say that better. I gain clarity through action. And so for me, if there's something that you love to do, you will prioritize it. You will. And did other things go down the rung of the ladder during that time? Absolutely. But for me, if you're passionate about something, you will spend time doing it, because that is the only way that you will have the experience, if you truly love it or not, right? I knew that when my alarm went off at 5 a.m., I think maybe in all of those months, I hit snooze once, maybe twice. I was like, bing, nope, I know this is what I want to do. And you just have to set parameters and set boundaries. and be really honest with the people in your life about what you're doing. And also, I think this is important to know that it is a season, because I don't feel it's beneficial for us to like work ourselves to the ground for years. And I knew that I could not do that. But could I do it for 6 months? Yep. Could I do it for a year? Yeah. But at that point, it started to get a little bit dicey. And every week I would check in with myself. Does this still feel good? Does this still feel aligned? And the moment where it was like, you know what? You just know. But here's the thing, and I think this is important for everyone to hear. That that little snap of the finger, that little whisper is your intuition. And your intuition is always speaking to you, but it whispers. Why does it whisper? Because your intuition says nothing out of fear. What is louder? Your ego. And ego is not bad. It helps us, right? It's our intellect, our ego. It keeps us safe. But our ego tends to shout, especially when we feel fear, because it wants to protect us. So it's really important. It's a lot of people that I meet and I help them in their charts. They say, yeah, but I don't have intuition, or like, I never hear it. And I said, yeah, that's just because your ego is shouting. So everyone's intuition is speaking. It's a lot of times it's in the whisper. And we don't want to shut our ego down, but we want to say like, all right, hey, I hear you. Thanks for trying to keep me safe. Just like quiet, zip it up, let my intuition drive, like I'm good, and I'll call you when I need you, kind of thing. So like have gratitude for it, but also like be in the driver's seat.
So good. I totally agree with that. It's like you have to be aware of what you want. And the only way you're going to ever be aware of such things is if you check in with yourself and try to listen to the intuition that you said, which is really good. So what are your routines like now? Like what do you do on a daily basis to keep yourself motivated and keep going?
It's so funny because like many people, I resist a strict routine. So, but I still have structure. I think that's important also for people in business to realize, because we have a lot of these, morning rituals. You get up and then you do this and you do this and you do this, but it doesn't work for a lot of people because by day 3 or 4, they get bored. So for me specifically, I have goals for the day. I always look at the energy of the day, and some energies are more productive and getting things checked off your list, and others are for more planning. Like there's different energies. So I always look at the energy. I look at the week ahead, and then I set my priorities for the days. And I set time for when I'm going to do it. But I allow myself to be fluid in that moment, right? So if I have 3 things I need to do, I don't necessarily plan the order of that. I leave that to the energy of the day, but I make sure I do all 3 of those things, right? So, in a typical day, meditation is always a part of my day. But again, it's not, if you think about like the Pinterest meditation with the candles and the hours, that's not me, right? I sometimes will stare off into space while my kids are eating cereal. And like, that's all the meditation I get for that day. That's okay. But other days I have more of it. There's always movement for me. So I do take a lot of meetings walking. I like to multitask. So I make sure I incorporate that when I can. I prefer to meditate and be creative in the morning. I am much more a morning person. And so at night, I leave more of the mindless tasks, more of the admin stuff. But other people, like if you're listening, you might be different, right? Mornings might be more of that, like until your brain turns on, you might just want to stay in the admin things, right? And then be more creative at night. It really depends on your own rhythm.
Everybody thinks differently. Everybody's way of working is individual. The great thing is, from what you said, you have to define your own success and then work hard to try and achieve it. The question I have for you is, how can people work with you, or what can they do to reach out?
So the first thing, if you're just curious and you want to know more about one number in your chart, there's something called a ruling number. And you can come to my website and just download a free gift. It'll help you calculate it and you can learn more about it. And that's just jessicacerato.com /free gift. I do one-on-one readings. I teach numerology, which is maybe for people who are very curious about it. And I also work with businesses and teams. Like I said, I had 15 years in human resources, and I facilitated all of the personality assessments. Oh my gosh, Myers-Briggs, True Colors, whatever. And you can use numerology in a similar way. And so, yeah, if you're interested in that, you can just reach out. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, my website. So you can probably see I love working with numbers, and I get a million messages a day, which I love, which simply say, oh my gosh, I saw 861 twice today. What is that? And I'll happily chat with you about it because I love it so much.
Amazing, amazing. I will leave all of your links in the description so people can reach out to you. But Jessica, thank you very much for shedding all of this light. It's been amazing chatting with you.
Thank you, Ash, so much.